Hello, welcome back to my channel and to my series where I talk about Final Fantasy VII. For the past few videos, I've been focusing on Tifa and Aerith and have touched on the LTD. I stated in my last video that I will start focusing on different characters and different themes of the game. I passed it off to you to see what you would like for me to talk about, and I got a lot of cool ideas for videos that I'm excited to dive into. Some of you requested that I make videos on Barret, and I'm happy to report that today we will be focusing on our lovable man with a gun for an arm. One of the wonderful things about Rebirth is that we got to see certain character arcs and backstories from the OG expanded. Barret's backstory was certainly the rule for that, and not the exception. There's a lot to learn from it about guilt, revenge, reparation, and how relationships can help with redemption that I want to get into. When analyzing how his backstory is expanded, I'm going to focus a lot on facial expressions, gestures, voice tones, essentially on the non-verbal communication that really shows Barret's ranges of emotions. I will also be drawing your attention to how certain characters react to his story. So let's begin. When the party reaches the trail to climb Mount Corel, Yuffie tries to reassure Aerith about climbing by saying there's fresh air and a nice view. Barret interrupts, saying that there's nothing nice about it unless you like staring at ruined reactors. You can see the resentment on his face and can tell that there's a story here. Tifa picks up on this as she found him outside the bar with Marlene on her second day working there. At that point, they had been wandering from town to town since the Corel reactor exploded and were at Midgar for a year. Marlene was 2 at the time, and they were in a bad state. Tifa and Marl helped them create a home at the bar and connected him with Avalanche. This was revealed in Traces of 2 Pasts, so Tifa is a little aware that this place stirs up bad memories for him. She points out to the party that he grew up there. Barret quickly cuts her off and says, "Let's get a move on," clearly not in the mood to talk about it. When they start to ascend, Barret picks a fight with Yuffie. When she asks how Tifa puts up with him, Tifa laughs and says that his good qualities outweigh the bad. After Tifa stops the party because Aerith is struggling, Yuffie wants to go on ahead to go after Materia. Barret goes after her. Tifa decides to go too in order to keep an eye on him since he's not himself. When they all reach the reactor, Barret sounds ominous when he says, "the Corel reactor." After their encounter with Weapon, Barret points out that this is proof that Shinra is pushing things too far and that Avalanche was right all along. He asks Cloud and Tifa if they agree. Cloud reminds him that Shinra isn't the bigger problem, and Tifa agrees that it's Sephiroth. After that, Barret takes the lead to the entrance, and you can hear him grunting under his breath if you pay attention. They soon reach a dead end when they find the bridge needs to be lowered. So Tifa turns to Barret and tentatively asks that he knows the area, right? He puts his hand behind his head and points where the control room is. Aerith asks how they'll get there, so he explains that they'll have to go through the mine, but it won't be easy since it's been abandoned for years. As he says this, his usual gentle eyes are filled with righteous anger. He then notices the ropes throwing themselves into the pool of Mako. Once he notices Cloud going towards the edge, Barret stops him. Cloud starts glitching, so Barret helps him walk to find a place to sit. Yuffie, Tifa, and Barret decide to go on ahead and that they'll call when they've lowered the bridge. Yuffie leads and they traverse the reactor using a grappling hook and elevator lines. Eventually, they get to the control room and find Cloud Jr., who takes a liking to Barret. He's not in the mood, but he relents. He notices the minecart and suggests that they take it down to meet up with the others, saying that it's not the smoothest ride, but it's fast. "Me and Dyne used to." He trails off, sighs, and gazes at the ground as Cloud Jr. rests on his shoulder. Tifa cocks her head in concern, so Barret says, "Forget it, let's get back to the others." Barret controls the bridge and then says that they should tell the others. The minecart minigame starts here, and I believe that the in-game purpose of it wasn't just to keep Yuffie's mind off of her motion sickness, but to also distract Barret from the trauma of this place. While they're crossing the bridge to get to North Corel, Barret grunts and says that he's not looking forward to this. Clueless Cloud asks, "Your homecoming?" Barret responds with, "You'll see." When they enter, the villagers are hostile. The party is starting to react with anger, so Barret puts his hand up to stop them from doing anything. The villagers continue to mock him and even pour wine on his head. He hangs it in shame but clenches his fists. The girls look absolutely appalled. Yuffie starts shoving them and tells them to leave him alone. Barret puts his hand on her shoulder to stop her and says, "Don't." The villagers scatter. Barret puts his glasses back on and says, "Let's go." Yuffie still looks pissed. Along the way, villagers tell them to stay away from Barret. Barret just tries to move the party along. Another villager stops them to ask if another get-rich-quick scheme failed and accuses him of selling out the town. Yuffie tells him that he shouldn't let anyone talk to him like that, but he tells her that he can take it. They eventually find Dr. Sheeran's clinic. He's the only villager who's nice to Barret and genuinely cares about his well-being. He's surprised to see the gun for an arm, but is relieved that Barret is healthy. While they're waiting by the ropeway to get to the gold saucer, Yuffie tells him that he can't let the villagers talk to him like that, and they should go back and do something. She's wondering why she's the only one who's pissed that the whole town came to shit on him. The rest of the party sighs. Barret looks down and softly says, "I told you, I can take it." Tifa asks if he can at least tell them what this was all about. They were talking as if he sold them out for money, but Tifa knows him and doesn't believe that. During this, he's trying to get the ride to come so he wouldn't have to answer. So Tifa clenches her fists and asks if it's about Marlene. He grimaces, looks up, his face is contorted, he sighs and starts talking. He begins by explaining that Corel wasn't much, but did have coal. The people had it rough, but they had big hearts. However, he sold them out and took their future away from them. 6 years before, Shinra came to pitch building a reactor. The promise of Mako was tempting, and they wanted to benefit from it. Scarlet came to hold a meeting with the mayor, Barret, and his best friend Dyne. Dyne was only one against it because he didn't want to abandon the mines that had been there for generations. Barret starts to make counterpoints to try to convince him, and Scarlet promises that part of the revenue from the reactor would go back to the town. He appeals to Dyne about making a better life for his daughter, which I think that there's a continuity error since Marlene is 4 during the events of the game and couldn't possibly be alive 6 years before. But let me know if there's an explanation for this, though. Dyne continues to debate, so Scarlet proposes a vote. Dyne hits his head in his hands in defeat. 2 years pass, the reactor was finished, and everything went well in the trial run. Everyone was excited about the new beginning, but that didn't last very long as one day the reactor exploded. Then Shinra came and burned everything, including innocent people. Cloud asks why they burned the whole town, so Barret explains that it was to make a story that a local insurgent group did it. He knows that Shinra is to blame, but he carries a lot of the guilt since he pushed for the reactor. Tifa says his name softly, wanting to comfort him, but he says, "The saucer is waiting," and gets on. During the ride, everyone is looking down and looks somber, so Barret says that he doesn't want them to feel sorry for him. He can live with what he did. Yuffie then starts talking about the saucer and gets everyone, except Cloud and Barret, excited. Barret, however, is annoyed because this is not the time for fun in his opinion. At the saucer, the girls put having fun at the saucer to a vote. This is a vote that Barret doesn't vote in favor of. When Cloud glitches and sees Sephiroth, Barret suggests that they book some rooms at the hotel while the rest go off and have fun. On the way, Barret asks what is wrong with the others, and Cloud says that Mako won't last long. And Barret sees his point. They need to enjoy it while it lasts. When they arrive at the ghost hotel, Barret's not amused by the frivolous use of Mako. Cloud tells him to get a grip, while Barret is stomping on the mummy's hands. Gotta love Barret. Then they meet Kate Sith, whom Barret is suspicious of. After they check into their rooms, Barret says that he'll head out for a bit to take a walk. Before leaving, he tells Cloud that he's been acting weird lately and that he should rest. This shows that despite the shit he's dealing with, he's still noticing Cloud is having issues. At the saucer, Barret is sitting down and watching children play. He pulls out a picture of Marlene. Suddenly, he looks up to see a mysterious cloaked figure with a gun for an arm and decides to follow him. He enters the Coliseum to see that people are fleeing, so he goes in further, finding dead Shinra grunts, civilians, and bullet holes in the walls, and he wonders what happened. Running towards the elevator, he sees the figure who has his back towards him. He takes off the cloak, and recognizing him, Barret says, "It can't be." The camera pans up to show the back of the figure's head before the doors close. The park shuts down, and Dio confronts the party since the shooter had a gun for an arm. Cloud points out that it couldn't have been Barret, since it wouldn't be his style to take out the security cameras. Barret is a flashy bitch after all. So Dio gives them 24 hours to clear Barret's name and to find out what happened. This leads to them going to Corel prison and making a deal with Gus to get the shooter that they caught. In order to do so, Cloud has to win the Chocobo race. After he does so, and they're on their way in the desert, they're caught in a sand twister. Barret fires his gun to guide them towards cover. They're relieved to see him, while he's wondering what they're doing all the way in the desert. They explain that they were looking for the culprit, who is described as having a gun for an arm. Cloud says, "Tell me it wasn't you." Barret's back is to him, but he turns his head to say that it might as well have been. Tifa requests that Barret talk to them, so he says that it was Dyne. After the reactor exploded, they went to the reactor to see what had happened. While running on the way back, they're wondering where Shinra is. They were heading back to tell the others what they found, only to arrive and see the town engulfed in flames. The mayor comes out and tells them that Shinra showed up and started shooting. He thinks that they're trying to cover up what happened and pin the blame on. He gets cut off as he's shot through the heart. They're spotted and have to head for cover. There, the mayor dies. Dyne is worried that Eleanor and Marlene are still in the village, so they run out to look. Suddenly, Barret gets shot in the knee. Dyne turns back to help when he starts falling in a ravine. Barret catches him with his right arm. Scarlet takes over the shooting and maniacally unloads on their clasped arms until Dyne falls into the ravine, calling out to his wife and daughter. Barret gets away, but he was badly hurt. Dr. Sheeran patched him up, but there was no saving his arm, so he opted for a gun. The party speculates that Dyne had the same idea. I have to point out the irony here. They lost their arms due to gunfire, so they turned those arms into guns themselves and take different approaches to revenge against Shinra. More on that later. Barret had thought that he died. Tifa suspects that Dyne shot all of those people to get back at Shinra, but he doesn't want to believe that Dyne would do that, so he wants to find and talk to him. When they find the hideout, Barret goes in alone. Cloud stops Tifa and tells him to go. Barret finds him inside, bound to a chair. Dyne recognizes Barret, who then frees him. He says, "Bless your heart, dropping by for Eleanor's birthday." He's clearly not with it, as he asks Eleanor and Marlene to set a place for him. Then he asks Barret why Myrna is not with him. Barret asks what happened to him. He helps him walk towards the others, and Dyne is triggered by seeing Cloud and accuses Barret of benefiting from Shinra. He starts shooting wildly at the party, so Barret pulls his gun on his friend and tells him to stop. Dyne tells him to do it, but instead Barret lowers his gun and stretches his hand out to tell him that he wants to help him. Dyne starts laughing like a crazy person, clutches his head, and says, "He's here to take the load off your shoulders, right? Same old shit." He starts shooting at Barret. Barret heads for cover, and then the two best friends fight. When Dyne's defeated, he tells Barret to kill him, but he won't. Dyne refuses to let it be over, so Barret takes off his gun and tells him to kill him because he can't live like this anymore. Dyne laughs and accuses Barret of wanting a way out, but where does that leave him? He stomps on Barret's gun and puts his to Barret's head, then shoves it and calls him a coward. Barret says that he's right and expresses regret. Dyne admits that he can still hear Eleanor telling him to give Barret the benefit of the doubt. But who's to blame? Shinra. He then sees some grunts and shoots at them. Barret knocks him over to protect him while Cloud fends the rest off. Dyne admits that he took so many lives to fill the hole in his heart. He wants to see his family again, but he can't bring himself to join them. Barret then tells him that Marlene is still alive, just turned 4 and is in Midgar. He takes out her picture, which Dyne snatches away. He has a sad but tender look on his face. Barret explains that he didn't know what to do then. Myrna had died and he thought that Dyne did too. He felt so much guilt and regret. He then heard Marlene crying before her house came down, so he saved her. After that, she helped him carry on. Dyne accuses him of taking her away from him and taking everything away from him in general. Barret reasons with him that they can go see her now. Dyne looks down at her picture, cries, collapses to the ground, and says that he can't face her after what he has become. He starts rubbing his hand on his clothes like he's wiping away blood. He then sees more grunts, shoves Barret aside, and unloads on them until they all die. But in the process, he gets shot a bunch. He takes off his gun and collapses on top of Barret. Now let me draw your attention for a second to him taking off his gun. Barret originally did so to ask Dyne to kill him. Now Dyne did the same after sacrificing himself to protect Barret. Before dying, he tells Barret, "You carry that guilt, that weight." He then addresses Eleanor, finds her in their kitchen, and they hug. Barret shakes him and then starts wailing. It's a really heartbreaking moment and brings tears to my eyes every time I watch that scene. After Cloud and the others defeat Palmer, the party goes towards Barret, who is on his knees looking at Dyne's body. The camera focuses on his hand holding on to Marlene's picture. Dio then shows up with the buggy as a gift to apologize for accusing Barret, and he promises a proper burial for Dyne. As everyone gets in the buggy, Barret is still at Dyne's side, so Cloud grabs his gun. Barret tells him that Dyne wanted him to live with his guilt. In a rare moment from this version of Cloud, he tells him, "Well, we're here for you." He gives him the gun and says that he means it. It's such a touching moment between Cloud and Barret and really shows their development. It's also symbolic of Barret finding new friends who are there to help him live with his guilt. He's not alone. Barret puts the gun back on, says goodbye to Dyne, puts his glasses back on, and joins the others. I have one more scene to add, but before that I want to discuss a couple of things. First, I want to show the contrast between Barret and Dyne. Barret is very much a character that gets carried away when it comes to taking action against Shinra. However, his role as Marlene's adoptive father and his friendship with Tifa and the rest of their Avalanche cell grounds him. They help keep him from going too far. Dyne didn't have that, so he did go too far. He thought he lost his whole family after losing his whole town. The loss drove him literally insane, and honestly, I think that his fall down the ravine didn't help his sanity at all. This is to show that human beings really do need each other to help each other through tragedy. Second, there is a big theme here of accepting your own guilt, learning to live with it, and doing what you can to make amends. Barret facing Dyne helped him see that he was avoiding responsibility by not facing his past. He helped him see that he needed to help others. Barret reflects on this as he joins Cloud on a side quest in North Corel. A group of kids need help with finding Cloud Jr., but they're reluctant to ask Barret for help since their parents say that they're not allowed to talk to him. So he says that they can talk to Cloud instead. They agree to go to the desert to find the bird. After accepting the quest, Barret talks about how he knows that there's no making amends, but he still wants to help where he can. Cloud says that what happened at the reactor wasn't his fault. Barret knows that, but he still agreed to it. It took him a while to accept it, and making excuses wasn't doing him any good. He's accepting his burden, and he knows that he's taking this quest on for himself. Cloud tells him not to let his guilt drag him down, though. During the quest, Barret admits that he got tunnel vision because he didn't want to think of anything else other than Shinra. Dyne helped him see that he needs to personally face things. Barret also tells Cloud about how he changed a lot because of Tifa. When she met him at the bar, she actually told him off because he was neglecting Marlene's needs. He became a better parent after that. The whole team in general helped him be more grounded. After completing the quest, they return to the kids who are thankful. Barret wants to bring Marlene back there someday and tell her about where she was born. Cloud, however, doesn't think that it's a good idea. Barret thinks that he owes it to Dyne, but Cloud asks how she would feel. Cloud is actually pretty insightful here. A kid then comes and whispers to the other kids. One of them tells them that they have to stay away from Barret, so he says that he doesn't want to get them in trouble. But before they leave, the kids thank him. I think that we can all learn a thing or two from Barret about accepting our own guilt and responsibility and doing what we can to make things right. I love that he learned that making excuses wouldn't help with that. This was a really moving character arc for him to face his past and learn to live with it. He's learning how much the people in his life help him and that he needs to do things in order to make life better for them. Not just Marlene, but everyone he cares about. I want to take this moment to talk about how different characters grew with Barret. It was really moving to see how willing Yuffie was to defend him when, before, they had argued a lot. Tifa constantly showed concern for him, but she also spoke up about how he needed to talk to them about what had happened. This actually helped Barret open up to the party about what had happened with the Corel reactor twice. Which, as a side note, I do want to talk about how this story was told. He didn't tell the whole story all at once. He told it at first until he was comfortable, and then didn't share the rest of it until towards the end of the quest. And I think this was to show that it took a bit for Barret to open up to the party completely. Then Cloud shows the most growth out of all of them by telling Barret that they're there for him and also helping him see that he needed to think of Marlene's feelings instead of doing what makes him feel better. It's really cool to see the development of the relationships within the party. Lastly, I want to talk about John Eric Bentley's performance as Barret. This man really needs to get more flowers with how much he knocks Barret's emotional depth out of the park. He has been a fan since the OG came out and knows how amazing Barret is as a character. He really brings out the emotional depth and nuance to his character with how he delivers his lines, grunts, and especially when he wails to mourn Dyne's death. He shows the human side and softness to Barret that comes out of his hardened exterior. It's so fucking moving and really makes Barret so memorable. This, in combination with the facial expressions, gestures, etc., really sells the emotional impact of this whole chapter of the game and Barret as a character. As a side note, I also want to draw to your attention to how his glasses are used as a cue of when he is done with these vulnerable moments. That's why I keep pointing them out. Barret in general is a character that we all should appreciate and not take for granted. I love how Rebirth really expands his story and makes it so impactful and moving for us fans. I will definitely make more videos in the future focusing on Barret, as he is such a dynamic character in so many ways. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Please let me know in the comments about anything that moved you about Barret's story. I love hearing your insights as it helps me see things in a new light or take notice of things that I haven't before. Also, let me know what else you would like to see my thoughts and analysis of in the compilation. So far, I've gotten a lot of incredible suggestions, and I'm really excited to dive into those. And with that, I'm off. I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!